I will tell the market what they want. There's a lot of misconceptions out there in the world, and to be honest, you don't blame people for the misconceptions that there are. A brand is what a brand does. There is no brand without an audience. If Apple products didn't work, they wouldn't be worth anything.
Sorry to stop you there, but it's a quick one. 72% of you did not subscribe, but now I'm super happy to announce that 67% don't. Am I happy? Yes, because it's deducting each episode, and I'm super grateful for everyone who subscribed. It helps us push and bring better guests on the podcast. Also, I know it gets annoying. I'm gonna ask you one more time. Kindly subscribe, leave a comment, and also like the video if it interests you. Let's get back to the video. Can I call you Pete?
You can call me Pete.
Thank you for coming. How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm really happy to be here. I've come across your podcast a number of times on both social media, YouTube, and all that. The kids know I'm coming here on your podcast and they recognize you, so that's really good. It's great.
Super.
Thanks
Thank you
for having me.
Thank you so much. Today we're here obviously to sit down and discuss brands. I know people don't think of it much importance as we discussed earlier, and I think that this is the right episode to discuss it, and that's why I asked you to come.
I appreciate being here. I mean, brands have been a huge part of my life for the last 25 years. I've been working in the marketing industry for 25 years. For the last 19, running BRND, which effectively is all about brands.
If you can give me one sentence of what BRND actually does, what is it?
Well, BRND, as I said, was set up 19 years ago in 2006. We're a strategic creative branding agency. In other words, what we do is we help entrepreneurs, business owners build brands and take them out into the market through various ways, thinking of the strategy, how they build the brands that they create, and also how they market those brands to their audiences and their customers through any platform, from traditional through digital, whatever works for whichever brand we're working on at the time.
Now, seeing that I've built Champions Connect for I think a year and a half. It's been consistent work. Branding wasn't my main importance, and I think that was one of the biggest mistakes I came across, is branding. Many people just go with the flow and say, listen, I want to go on Canva and create my own logo. I want to go on these AI-generated systems and create my own animated logo. And I think that that's the easy way out, and that's the cheapest way to do things. What can you tell me about this?
Well, I think we should start off with defining what brands are, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there in the world, and to be honest, you don't blame people for the misconceptions that there are. Effectively, a brand is what a brand does. Okay, so everyone has a brand. Okay, their own reputation. A brand is an understanding. It's a perception of how people feel about a product, a service, or a person, anything in reality, which exists. Okay, so effectively, the brand lives at different levels. Okay, a brand lives in your mind, so how you perceive that brand and how the brand makes you feel by consuming the brand or deciding not to consume that brand. A brand makes you see. Obviously, there's everything which reacts to the five senses. Okay, what we call the explicit side of the brand. What the five senses effectively. What you see, taste, touch, feel, sound, smell as well. Today, if you think about big brands like Starbucks or big brands like even the Western hotels, every single Starbucks has its unique smell. So there is scent branding. The minute you pass by, it says, this reminds me of Starbucks. And then there is the intrinsic stuff about the brand, which is effectively the brand's purpose, the brand's principles, and the brand's proposition. So when you say you're working on a brand, I think it's about clarity. It's understanding, what does this brand really mean to its customers, to its audience? How does it resonate? How does it talk to its customers and to its audiences? What are the decisions? What are the principles over which it's going to take decisions? And not just the design, which is only a very, very small part of the brand.
Exactly.
So whether you've been working actively or consciously on your brand or not, you exist as a brand in people's minds, in people's hearts. Jeff Bezos, who everybody knows obviously from Amazon, defines brands as what people say about you when you're not in the room. Okay, so it's your reputation.
Let's go back to when you're starting a brand.
Yeah.
Many people obviously have no guidance, and it's super difficult to find. You're trying to build a niche, in other words, but you don't know what your niche is yet.
Yeah.
So let's say you're trying to build something, let's say a clothing brand, for example, and you want to create a design. Okay, but design is not the brand itself.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the first step you should take to start your brand?
Look, I think it's a really hard question, and I really don't want to overcomplicate it. So I'm going to try and simplify it as best as I can. When you create something, okay, like a clothing brand, you create that something from a wish to do something which is different, unless you're creating it just to monetize and just to make money. But let's assume that there is something beyond just the cash and beyond the money.
Let's say longevity wise.
And let's take a photo. You're trying to do something out there into the world which is supposed to have meaning, okay? And that meaning is the promise that you're giving to your customers and your audience. So if you're defining this new clothing brand, what does that clothing brand really stand for, okay? What is it supposed to evoke in people's minds? Especially when you're talking about clothing brand, you're talking about the way you're affecting somebody's ego. Why? Because you're putting on this piece of clothing. So if I'm wearing a plain black t-shirt, what does it say about me? But if I'm wearing a t-shirt with a massive logo of this new clothing brand that you're creating, what does that say about me? So I think when you're creating this brand, you need to understand, okay, what do your customers expect? What do your customers want? Or how do you delight and surprise your customers? Okay. And also, how do you stand out? Because if you're talking about black t-shirts, there's probably 1,000,001 different brands which produce great and rubbish and crap black t-shirts, okay? All at different values. In reality, between all those million t-shirts, the variability of quality is probably not as wide as one might think. And you could be paying 4 times as much for the same t-shirt with a different logo, even if the logo doesn't show. But what you're buying is that promise. If I'm buying a Hugo Boss t-shirt versus I'm buying a no brand t-shirt, what is the promise I'm buying? That promise is in terms of quality. That promise is also, how does that make me look in front of my peers? And so when we define brands, I always like to think about ego and laziness. Okay, so ego, how does this brand make its customers feel about themselves? Laziness, how easy does it make their life? Okay, so if you tap into those things, I think that kind of closes the loop. So if you're building any brand, understand what is the promise that you're going to have with your customers. How do you want them to feel when they're wearing your brand, when they're using your brand, or when they're being recognized as you wearing that brand? Okay, what's the relationship there, and what are you trying to create? How you price it says a lot about the type of brand it is. Sometimes you can price something which is of little production value, but of huge monetary or brand value because it defines a new promise to your customer. I don't know if that clarifies.
It's making sense. Obviously, I don't think that there's a specific guide to build a brand. And I came across this as well. So I'm trying to build something new. This niche, there are many. And when you don't have a guide, you tend to copy. You know? So I think that's the main reason why many brands copy the best that have done it, and then tend to fail quick. Why shouldn't we copy other brands when building it?
Well, I think beyond the legality of why you shouldn't copy, because obviously you can get your ass sued.
Let's say design wise, like the way they post, the way they use captions, the colors, schemes, many different things.
Look, I think it's nearly impossible today to be 100% original, because every combination has been tried before. What you can do is obviously try and continue to reinvent the way you appeal to a customer's wish and appeal. Consistency in branding is one of the biggest key things, and I think you're doing a really good job of that, because even in terms of show after show, the way you ask your questions, the way the setup is, the way your guests sit down, the way you go across and deliver to your customers, I think you're building that consistency, and that promise to your customers is there. When we talk about imitation, I think there are a number of things which are about the formula. Okay, there's a very simple, clear way to cook a carbonara pasta. If you add cream, if you add bacon instead of guanciale, you screw it up completely. The reality is, if you stick to the master principle, you can create an amazing carbonara. But then you can add your flair. Where does your flair come? How you serve it, maybe the type of guanciale that you're using. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you're trying to create a new brand, you need to look at the base, the foundation, which is also what your customers expect. Okay, and then understand, what can you innovate? How can you be different in the sea of sameness? Because as you said, especially if you look at social media, especially today with AI, not everybody, but a lot of people are doing exactly the same thing in the same way. What's happening to them? They're just getting completely lost. Yes, it's the words that they use. Yes, it's the way they edit their videos. Yes, it's the way the music is coming out there. And the more we use systems and apps that help us replicate what works, the more we're coming across as same and same. I think how you stand out, it's not only what you say, it's how you say it and how you say it consistently. And I think that is really, really key.
It's keeping the consistency basis with your audience.
It's continuing to appear to answer the problem that they want you to solve.
Okay. Now let's go on to a part of the podcast, which is personal branding.
Mm-hmm.
I think personal branding, in my opinion, trying to build something new was the biggest trend in 2024-2025, where people were facing Iman Ghazi, Alex Hormozi, seeing these type of people grow with their personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
And they just the bright side of things, where it's all the TikTok money and monetization. People want to make money quick, which I think that, okay, there are people who've been there, done that type of situation, but that's the 1% situation around the world, which happens regularly. The point I'm getting to is that people sometimes come across situations where the personal brand either comes by mistake
Mm-hmm.
or by consistency, as we spoke.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between that, and how can you keep that as a legacy-wise?
I think there is a bit of a false acceptance out there that there is anything like the overnight success. People talk about this overnight success. Even you talk about Alex Hormozi, who is probably one of the greatest of personal brands today.
To stop you there,
Yeah.
you know how much he made from his new book?
I heard it's ridiculous. No, I think he bashed
77 million.
77 million
First
in
24
a couple
hours.
of hours, exactly. But if you look at that, I mean, and if you probably sign up to all of Alex Hormozi's newsletters, I mean, how many emails did you receive on Saturday? Okay, when he went live? I mean, I received about 4 just before the event. And I received also from his wife just before the event. That's how big the system is. And if you look at Alex Hormozi, I mean, Alex has been making, success after success, failure, and then again, success, failure, success, failure. He's failed 3 times before he's become who he is again today. So this whole concept of the overnight success is a promise that people and brands like Alex Hormozi like to talk about and promise, because you're going to sign up to that type of success and you want to emulate that sort of success. And so I think when it comes to accident or consistency, I don't believe in accidents, okay? I also believe that the harder you work, the luckier you get. And if you think about somebody like Alex, the amount of consistency and the amount of determination and the amount of focus that he's put into creating this brand around him and being, the master of his trade and the master of his craft and probably the most well-known expert in that very, very specific, industry. It's not by accident. It looks like it's done by accident, but it's not by accident. And I think everything about somebody like Alex, including the cap that he wears, the tape across his nose, the ugly vest that he's put on, the beards, and his bulk, is all about the Alex Hormozi brand. So I don't think it is about accident. I think accident is you're accidentally great at doing something and you capitalize on what makes you a master at something, and you continue to improve on your craft and you keep on saying the same message day in, day out for weeks, for months.
Yeah.
If you look at any of Alex's appearances, even on podcasts, the recent podcast that he did with Stephen Bartlett, he's saying the same thing consistently. And if you keep on saying it consistently, at some point in time, you start to believe it.
Speaking about Alex, many people tend to grow personal branding for monetization,
Mm-hmm.
for quick monetization. And there were many videos of Alex stating that, listen, if you want to build a personal brand, yes, it's going to monetize you later on in life, but focus on longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if there are steps to creating a longevity personal brand, it would help the audience figure out how to grow this. So is there any steps that one must take?
I think this is a really good question, Luca. I think, and it's something I've grappled with for many, many years. Over the years, as the CEO of Brandwagon, I've also found myself, understanding that unless I put myself out there, I'm not going to be able to build up the brand that I represent and the company and all our stakeholders. And so I started to say, okay, what is it that I need to be doing more of to get the company out there? And in a world which has become extremely, digital and very, very transactional, putting people to front organizations is something which is really obviously working. For those who know me really, really well know that I'm much more comfortable wearing my helmet, riding around, and not having to have conversations with loads of people. Not that I don't enjoy having conversations, but the whole networking thing bothers me. Putting myself out there is something I don't feel naturally capable of doing. So when I knew I had to build my own personal brand to raise the brand of the organization, I wanted to do it in a way which was structured, but also in a way that was really me. And we developed a framework, which we call the rock and roll framework, which is something I built over years working with people like even Neela Juice in the past and other consultancy brands which I've helped and supported in how we lift up their people. And the rock and roll framework is basically something very simple, which I'm very, very happy to share today with your audience. So rock and roll stands for your rock, which is basically who you are and the things you will never change about yourself. Okay, so as a rock, it's something which is always stuck and fixed. So your rock is basically your purpose, your principles, and your personality.
Sorry to stop you there.
Yeah.
Doesn't that change by time?
It can develop over time, but that who you are as your core will not change.
Okay.
What will change, however, is your role. And when we talk about role, it's ROLE, not double L. Okay, so what is your role in the world? And we talk about role in terms of what is the problem that you want to be associated with fixing? Okay, so I want people to think about Pete as anything got to do with brand. If I have an issue with my brand, whether it's my corporate brand, my organizational brand, the brand I'm putting out to customers, or their own personal brand, I need to speak to Pete. So I want to associate my name, Peter Jan Grech, with anything got to do with branding. So that's the problem I'm fixing in the world. I talk about what is my professional role as a CEO of my company, as a brand expert, as a strategist, as a keynote speaker. You know, that's who I am professionally, but I also talk about who I am personally, because people don't want to just see a title and a role. They also want to see who is Pete. So Pete being the father of 3, husband, the stuff I love to do, from sports to outdoors to music to all the things that make me who I am and bring my best to my work. Okay. And finally, N is actually energy. Okay. So how do I want people to feel in my presence? Who are the people that I actually care about? Okay. And what are the platforms that I want to put out there? So if you look back, it's rock, the things that you'll never change about yourself. It's your role in life, and the energy around you. Those are the 3 fundamental things, which if you break them down, create the 9P platform, which is something I teach. And it's something which is actually really, really easy to understand. If you know who you are, you know where you want to go, that's half the battle won. Because then you have the courage and the clarity to really chase what's meaningful to you and to live the best life that you ever wanted to, surrounded by the right people and also doing what really works for you. And I think that is really, really key. Today we talk a lot about people wanting to be authentic. But when we talk about bringing your authentic self to everything that you do, what is it? Because everybody can throw around the word authenticity. I think authenticity is about living towards your purpose. And you asked a really strong and important question. But doesn't that change over time? I think life changes and life changes you. And I think what you want to try and achieve develops over time. But I think your North Star is your North Star. I translate purpose, which I know a lot of people talk about, follow your purpose. Simon Sinek has, made a living of talking about, start with why. I define purpose as in really chasing what makes you feel alive, okay? The pursuit of what makes you feel alive. Why? Because when you're doing stuff that doesn't really work for you, when you're doing stuff which is not really true to who you are as a person, you start to die inside. When you start to communicate like a fake, you feel fake and you start to die inside. Whilst when you really chase the things that make you feel alive as a person, you start to grow and you also start to feel full of energy. And that is how you bring your true authentic self to every single thing that you do. So whether that's running a podcast, whether it's appearing on somebody else's podcast, whether it's just meeting somebody in the street and sharing, things about you that you really care about.
Are you a property agent or thinking of becoming one? PIN is Malta's game-changing platform that gives you access to shared listings, smart tools, and a network of top agents, all while keeping your brand and independence. Close more deals, work smarter, and grow faster. Ready to join the future of real estate? Grow now and grow with PIN. Let's get back to the episode. You're speaking about authenticity. Joe Rogan has obviously one of the best podcasts in the world at the moment. And if you realize, he never sticks to one sort of sport or one sort of idea. He always diversifies. And he created his own niche, where he attracts different people from all around the world. For example, he's sometimes talking about with UFC athletes, sometimes he's talking about aliens. It's super different,
diverse.
super, but he's authentic.
Yeah.
So and I came across it myself where there were situations when it came to content creation. I was in the very beginning of things where I wasn't myself. I was a very stiff person. I was trying to be very, very professional. Even the words I was trying to say, they weren't myself. And it was looking a bit fake. Where when I became myself, even my hand gestures and the way I spoke, the way I acted around the cameraman, the people who were with me, I think that's where I engaged most of my audience. So do you think that the highlight of all the personal branding and all the branding regarding coloring, I think authenticity is the biggest factor out of all this?
I think you're definitely right. And you can see it even in the way over the weekend, I was looking at your past podcasts, your very early ones and the ones that you're doing today. And you've really grown as a person, and even the type of questions that you're asking and how comfortable you are on stage. So I think there's a number of different things. Number one, there's always that imposter syndrome when you're starting out. When you're starting out, it's painful. And you're going to get criticism from people around you. You're going to get criticism even from people who are closest to you because they want the best for you, but also they want you to remain the person they think you were, as opposed to chasing and finding your own identity. And it's uncomfortable for people to see you change because they were fixed with who they thought you were. I think that consistency allows you to grow and allows you to find who you are. And I think the more training that we do, the more we stick to what we're trying to achieve, I think the better we come out, and also we perfect and we become masters of our trade. In the past, we used to think it was the 10,000 hours, no? If you wanted to become a really good athlete, a really good musician, you need to do your 10,000 hours. Today, actually, they say it's closer to 100 hours. Now, I don't know if we've just become more efficient at it, but it is about consistency. There's something I speak about a lot in my keynotes. I've delivered a number of keynotes over the last couple of years on different stages in different countries. And one which I really talk about is practice makes permanent. And it's this concept, we believe that practice makes perfect. But if you're practicing the wrong thing, you're just going to become amazing at doing things wrong. But if you practice things well, it does become permanent. And this story came to me. I do triathlon, not great, nowhere close to what Fabio does. But I do it just to stay alive, and I do it just for my mental health. And I used to swim with a friend of mine, Sammy, and one time, he was saying, Pete, you need to improve this. And I said, oh yeah, Sam, don't worry, practice makes perfect. He said, no, Pete. He said, practice makes permanent. And it's true. If you continue to train a bad stroke, you're just going to get either really injured or just become great at being crap. And practice makes permanent is about really understanding what is it that you really want to improve, finding better ways to improve it, looking for inspiration, looking for better ways to become a better version of yourself, and practicing it day in, day out. So I think it's about that. I think it's really, really focusing on what makes you feel alive and always trying to improve it.
We'll move on to the big names: Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. Let's go to Elon Musk actually.
Elon Musk, that's a good personal brand.
He built a personal brand out of building Tesla. So Tesla, if you think of Tesla, who are you going to think about?
Yeah, Elon. I think it's really interesting that you brought up Elon Musk. Number one, I would say that, as an entrepreneur, I think he's obviously proven his weight in gold, because he's done some really amazing projects. I mean, people know Elon for Tesla, but in reality, he started way back in the days of PayPal. And there's been a number of other successful projects that he's done in the past. Obviously, what he's most infamously known about today is how his entrance into politics really destroyed his own personal brand and also destroyed, the share price of Tesla, the share price and the sales of Tesla. And unfortunately, I mean, as much as I disagree with a number of things he's done, but who am I to judge? The reality is, and the sadness is the fact that what he was doing politically was completely diametrically opposed to what his audience believed in. And his Tesla audience, why? Because his biggest market for Tesla, besides all the growing markets, were, like California, which was very, very sort of, pro climate change, pro green, pro, energy, changing the way we do things to protect, the world from climate change. And a lot of the stuff that the Republican, effectively, beliefs were completely against that. So the minute he went in and started Dodge, a lot of people were dodging Tesla. And a lot of people were trying to stay away from being associated with a brand that was associated with somebody who doesn't align with their principles. And I think that is one of the biggest masterclasses, if you wish, in how important personal branding is. But there are so many others like that.
When you think of Tesla, of Apple, for example, do you think about the actual battery behind it, the
shape,
the material, the shape, or do you think about your ego?
That's a really good question. And I think that coming back to what we discussed last time, or at the beginning of this podcast, brands are built on 3 levels, okay? You've got your intrinsic, which is, your purpose, proposition, and principles. You've got your explicit, the stuff that people see, the logo at the back, the shape, the perfect shape of every single Apple product that has a very, very clear bevel to it. And you also have at the top is the brand pulse, okay? And the brand pulse is specifically about the way the brand makes you feel as a person, okay? And I think if you look at brands, big, massive brands like Apple, okay, they have managed to do 2 things really, really well. They've built an ecosystem which once you're in, you're locked in. You are really locked in. And to get out of an Apple, out of the Apple ecosystem is actually painful. It takes time, it takes money, and it takes a learning curve. And people avoid pain at all costs.
Even the difference in price is a big difference in price, let's be honest.
Yes, and that's part of the brand. Why? Because if you buy Apple products, you want to feel as if you are somehow superior.
It's true.
And even when you hold up your phone, I have 3 cameras on mine, or you have 1 camera on yours, okay, you've bought the most expensive one. Half the people who have the most expensive Apple iPhone will probably not even use it for a fraction of the things that are going to be used with that iPhone. So,
for example, the older generations, they're all stuck to Samsung. My parents are stuck to Samsung. But if I give them an Apple Watch, an Apple phone, they have no idea how to use it. So no idea, and it's super funny. I think it's all about the ego when it comes to these things.
I think it's a lot about ego. I think, everything is a lot about ego. What we do as people, the religions that we follow, the clothes that we wear, the cars that we buy, a number of the habits and the people that we, commit to, which is why it's extremely hard to change, people's behaviors. And a behavior is based on how people identify themselves. An ego, in not the words selfish ego, but who we see ourselves as. Okay, how do I identify? Do you identify as an athlete? Do you identify as a podcaster? Do you identify as a hybrid version of all those? Who are you? Who is Luca? And I think those things make a massive difference. So ego is a lot about it. Even the pricing point. The fact that it is nearly prohibitive to buy an iPhone or an iPad or an iPad Pro just to make things even more expensive, is a lot about, what does that brand say about you as a person? So ego is a lot about it. And again, it comes to personal brands as well.
Do you think, Alex, I'm going to go back to Alex Ramosi because it's going to lead to this. I was watching one of the podcast episodes. I forgot of who exactly. And he said, in the beginning of his life, of his business career, he mentioned that he sold expensive shit. And that's the quote that he's still stuck by today. Sell expensive shit.
It's hard to say, because even if you look at Jeff Bezos, who is, I think, one of the richest, if not the richest, it depends on the share price of Amazon and how it fluctuates. I mean, what Amazon did is create an amazing platform for people to be able to find everything in one very, very specific place, delivered very, very quickly at ease. Okay, the concept of the one-click pay. Okay, and the idea that you can buy everything from A to Z, which is in fact in the logo. I don't know if most people know this, but if you look at the Amazon logo, there's an actual, people think it's a smiley, but it is a smiley which is built out of an arrow, which goes from the A of Amazon to the Z of Amazon, and that's where A to Z. Okay, so it's some interesting trivia.
That's
Sorry,
good.
I'm a bit of a branding nerd, as you probably realize by now. Being associated with what you call expensive shit, I think is just one way of doing it. The thing is, like, if you were sick, okay, whose advice would you take? Somebody who's giving it to you for free, or somebody who's going to charge you a real expensive amount to pay for it?
The second one.
We say in marketing that free is cheap. Okay, so when something is being given for free, it probably has zero value, which then goes a bit against kind of the Alex concept of the hook, give away stuff for free, which actually taps in to this concept of give, and the more you give, then you will get. Okay, because if I give you something, like I've lent you my iPad today, and I'm going to give you something else, all of a sudden you feel like you owe me something. And what is that concept? Okay, so this idea is different. There are loads of tricks in the trade. There are loads of things in the trade which you can use to attract people, to get people to be hooked into the ecosystem, which is how you get into the ecosystem of Apple, of Tesla, of various other brands.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you build that stickiness for people to stay? And that stickiness comes from a number of things. It comes from behavior, habits. Okay, the more you start to do the same thing repeatedly, the harder it is to break that process. Because as human beings, we're always avoiding pain. Okay, so and pain is not necessarily you hurt yourself, but pain is even getting outside of our comfort zone is pain, which is why there's only one Luca who's doing these podcasts at your age. There's so many other people who say, one day I'll start, they never do it. It's painful. To start off, it's painful. You're going to get a lot of shit from a lot of people, and not a lot of people are going to believe in you at the beginning. There are other things which people can do, but obviously, it's much easier to sell really expensive things to people with really big budgets and to sell a few of them than to sell very, very small, inexpensive things to the masses. So I think it all depends on what you're producing, how you stay out of the game of the sea of sameness, if you wish, and how you do it really, really well at scale.
Exactly. We're mentioning all these big names, and from me personally, I think it was one of my biggest ways to scale in many different things, in sports, in business, in building community. Mentors. I think mentors are big effect on many different people. And I don't think everyone is the same, because there are some people who have egos that can listen to people, and some say, listen, I'm going to just do my own thing. I'll make it alone and see where that can take me. Do you think mentors are one of the biggest factors in scaling your personal brand?
I think mentors can really help. I think, speaking to somebody that you trust and somebody that you look up to, who has your best interests at heart, I think is really, really key, and it can really help you open up. The truth about mentoring is that it takes two very, very special type of people for it to work. And I say that because sometimes you look at people who say that they're good mentors, or they say that they're mentors, but what they're trying to do is to get other people to relive the things that they didn't manage to do, or to accentuate their ego out through somebody else, because either it's too late for them to do it or they can do it. On the other hand, to be mentored well, you need to understand that a mentor is somebody who's going to help open up different opportunities, to help you look at things in a very different way, to see different perspectives, or to see things through the eyes of somebody who's experienced stuff before. But you still need to be very, very clear that fundamentally it's you who needs to take the decision, and you need to own your own decisions. So despite a mentor telling you should do this, or I suggest maybe you do that, or have you explored this avenue, it's finally up to you to decide what you want to do and what feels right for you. So you talk about Steve Jobs. I'm not sure, I read Steve's biography many years back. I don't know if he had many mentors, but also Steve was somebody who really felt very, very clear about what he wanted to do and where he wanted to take the company. He was somebody who really didn't actually believe in research. Okay. He said, I will tell the market what they want. I will not ask the market what they think about what I'm giving them. And to a certain extent, he's very right, because sometimes you go to the market with something and it's either too ahead of its game and people don't understand what they're looking for.
It happened with Apple, for example, the glasses.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not aware of the story.
I don't see them anymore, so maybe I'm back
Apple
myself.
Vision, I think the Vision goggles. I think,
exactly those.
Yeah, the Vision goggles. I mean, I'm not a fan yet, but I do feel that there is something there. I do feel that there is something interesting over there. I think that it's also maybe they were a bit ahead of the time, and before things really scale into that space, I think it will take some time till it builds up.
That's why I mentioned it, because it could be too ahead of the game.
Yeah, sometimes it's very dangerous when you're either too ahead of the game or too late for the game. Sometimes we talk a lot about the first mover advantage. A first mover advantage sometimes works, doesn't always work. Okay, so it's really hard, to really calculate. But I think it's a matter of sometimes you need to just trust. Sometimes you need to trust, everything around you. You need to be very, very open. You need to really feel as close as you can to your customers, to your audience. So, brands don't exist in isolation. There is no brand without an audience, and you really need to understand who the audience is. Sometimes we waste too much time trying to appeal to everybody, when in reality, you're better off pissing off 80% of the market and really narrowing down and zeroing in on the 20%. Because the 20% are the ones who are really going to help you scale. And the 20% are those people who sign up to the 18,000 Alex Hormozy, sign up here, masterclass
Mentor.
program, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, if Alex is promising that you're going to make $1 million very, very quickly, why wouldn't you spend 18,000 to make $1 million? It's really, it's very quick maths.
Exactly.
Tell me anywhere that I can invest 18,000 today and make $1 million, and I can give you the cash. So it's the promise that people are buying, but it's the promise that they're buying in Alex, who has been saying for many, many years,
Has done it.
this is what I can do, and shown you at scale that it can be done, and has taught other people to do it. And that's about consistency.
I've came across many different people who are building personal brands that are selling something that hasn't been done yet.
Okay.
And going back to all this, authenticity is the number one thing. So Alex Hormozy, we're going to go back to the conversation. His authenticity and him proving that he's done it makes sense. So I think for whoever's watching at the moment and who's trying to build a personal brand or even a brand, we're going to go into to the other side of branding right now. Be authentic, show that you've done it, build on what you've done, and then provide it.
I think it's really tricky. I mean, there's, in the industry, a lot of people mention, probably jokingly, the fake it till you make it concept.
I was about to say it, yeah.
And I mean, I've been one of those who've used the fake it till you make it concept many, many times in my life.
With regards to, if I may ask?
Because, there is an element of showing a level of confidence and showing a level of understanding. Now, I definitely am totally against being insincere and lying to your customers. I mean, absolutely not and never. Having said that, creating that element of confidence and showing up to look confident in your space, that you know what you're talking about, is different to saying I've done it, as opposed to saying I know that this will work. Okay, and those are two very, very different things. So the fake it till you make it, I know it's easy to just go around and say it, but in reality, if you really strongly believe in something, I mean, there was no iPhone before there was the iPhone. You couldn't prove that the iPhone was going to work. And many, many innovations which didn't make it through. But the confidence and the belief that you've really studied the market, you understand who the audience is, and you understand what you're giving to them and what you're delivering and how you're delivering on that promise, I think some element of fake it till you make it can work. And the faking doesn't mean sell shit, doesn't mean sell lies. It just means believe
in what you're selling,
in what you're going to do, and believe in the concept of, call it the laws of attraction, call it the self-actualization, that, you're going to believe that this is going to work. And in reality, when I started BRND 19 years ago, I never thought it was going to be as successful as it is. I never assumed that I was going to be able to work on the brands that I do today. And I'd be surrounded by the amazing people who currently work at BRND, some amazing partners I have with me running the show, and also the amazing people have come and gone. Some of them have even set up their own agencies in the past, and I'm still proud of what they've done and what they continue to do. But I did feel confident that this was going to happen, even though I was scared that it wouldn't. But I felt confident I had what it took, and I was going to put in all the hard work. I didn't have the cash. I didn't have access to the right network, but I believed I could make it happen.
Let's move on to the business side of things. Now you're building not a personal brand, but now you're building a business and building a brand around it.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally different. I feel it's totally different, and I believe that this takes more time and effort. Trying to build a community, and you're trying to sell something now.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Oh, it's a massive difference. And it's a huge difference because, one, I think when it comes to personal brands, I think you're 100% in control of what you say, what you do, and how you act, and how you expect people to react to you. As opposed to when you're building a brand and you're delivering a service or a product at scale, there are so many other variables that you have zero control over, which is why it's so much more important to be in control of how you're putting things out there, and to really have the understanding and the vision of knowing what's going to work for you and what are the things that are the non-negotiables for you and your team. Which is why, when you're building a brand, you really need to take into consideration what is the type of company, what is the type of organization that we're going to become, Who are the type of employees that we want to attract? What is the employer brand that we want to build over here? What is the culture that we want to nurture in our organization? And how is all that going to create services or products that are going to go out there to satisfy and tick and deliver on a promise that we're giving to our customers?
Now that works.
Mm-hmm.
But as we mentioned earlier, time changes you.
Yeah.
Okay, business can change, what you offer can change, your whole business can change, you know. So let's go back to the beginning when I asked you, what is personal branding?
Mm-hmm.
And you gave me a bit of a description about that. Now, what is branding around business? What is a brief around that?
Well, I think they're not so
Far apart.
They're not so different. I think a brand, a commercial brand, is a promise that you're delivering to your customers. Okay, so whatever it is, whether it's delivering on a flight, what type of airline are we going to be, what type of destinations are we going to fly to, and how do we want people to feel when they land there and as they're buying their products. So if you're buying tickets on Ryanair, it's very different customer experience than buying tickets on an Emirates or British Airways. Okay, and along the whole journey, how they're talking to you, how they're selling to you, and how they're delivering on that service is so different. And once you become accustomed, and as a brand, as a person, you become really loyal to a very, very specific airline, the minute you change that, you're comparing the new airline to your old airline, good or bad. Okay? So I think it doesn't change in the sense that, as a personal brand, you become consistently clear on a very specific message and a problem that you're trying to solve. As a commercial brand, you are delivering on a promise and an itch that you're trying to scratch for a customer. What is that itch? Tickets? Problems, cameras, drones, what are you fixing? Okay, what is it that you're selling? And how are you delivering them? Are you selling cheap? Are you selling expensive? Are you substantiating the experience with the expensive? What are you doing? So how we build those brands, I mean, as I said, there are those 3 layers we talked about before.
We all want change, and we all want it fast. New body, new mindset, new habits. But real change, it's not a switch, it's a system. Reflex Gym gives you that system. The space, the structure, the support. Whether you're getting started or pushing for the next level, Reflex is where progress happens. Built on hard work, backed by community. Visit Reflex Gym on their website, reflex.com.mt. Let's get back to the pod. Let's double down on one thing. Okay. Our generation is all about younger people either trying to build a business or trying to create a community to make money off it. Now, I come across many different people, and also I tried to either build a clothing brand, white labeling, the situation about white labeling, and also create an event. Now, what's the difference between one and the other?
I think you've touched upon 2 really interesting angles, which are 2 very, very, in my mind, exciting businesses to be associated with, both the events industry but also the white label. Let's tap into the white label, because that's like the classic brand, and then I promise I want to come back to the events. So I think white labeling is a very interesting space. Okay. Why? Because you can find some amazing manufacturers in Portugal or any other places around the world. Please stay away from fast fashion for various reasons. And you can just slap a logo on them and sell them as your own. Okay. So what the whole principle over there is, when you're inherently building value into that logo, you need to try and create some sort of cult. Okay. So you need to really understand, how is your brand really going to stand out? Okay. I took the example of black t-shirts, millions of black t-shirts. I'm not buying the black t-shirt. I'm buying what that black t-shirt makes me feel as a person that I am, or the image I want to project about myself. So what you need to create is try and create an understanding of, where do you want to position the people who are buying your product. Okay, so if you're creating a white label brand and you're going to call it Champions Connect, for example, what is it? What's the promise? So you're saying that champions wear this brand. Okay, so what does champions mean? Okay, what is the promise that you're building? I think to be a champion today means that you were looking at your potential of growth. You're understanding that you're
a winner,
you're a winner, you're succeeding. So how does that manifest as a brand? Okay, how does that manifest in, the I don't know, the journey of building that brand. What is the promise that you're putting out there on social media? What are the type of athletes that you're going to be surrounding yourselves? Who are the champions? Are they just the champions are going to be specific athletes, or the people who are going to be weekend warriors who get out there every single day? How do they see themselves? What sort of athletes? Are they the athletes who will win against all odds, or are they the athletes who are going to be in it just for the sport? If you think of Garmin, for example, and the concept of beat yesterday, it's an amazing brand.
It's a huge accomplishment.
It's a huge accomplishment, but it's something which I can sign up to. So if you take me, I'm probably your least athletic person, okay? But for me, waking up every single morning and doing something, whether it's cycling or swimming or running or swooping, whatever it is, for me, it's about beat yesterday. How do I become a better version of myself today? And it keeps me accountable. And for those of us who've got Garmin, sometimes you get a notice and says, I'm productive, and you're like, screw you. But it's about beating yesterday. How do I improve? What are the metrics that So when we talk about building this brand of Champions Connect, for example, what is it that you're building? What is the promise? Okay, and if you think about Apple, go back to Apple, the promise was always about think different, okay? And think different, and the famous campaign that they had launched, I think, in the early 2000s, is the idea that different, better people use Apple. People who don't associate themselves with the status quo, people who want to be individual. They created ads, with Bob Dylan and Albert Einstein and Gandhi, people who stood out. They talk about the square pegs and round holes, that concept of being different. So if you're creating this new brand, this white label brand, what is it that you're promising? Because people aren't buying the t-shirt. People aren't buying the logo. They're buying a way of life. And then it's how do you make them really feel that they're doing it? In the way you package, in the way you box, in the way you speak to your audiences. And then creating the concept of urgency, the concept of drops, this concept of FOMO. There isn't enough for everybody. So if you want to be there, you got to be on the list. You got to know, you got to hang out. You got to really realize when we're doing a drop, and you got to make sure that you're in there first. And that concept of it's not for everyone. So maybe creating a barrier of entrance, maybe, shifting the price goes up by 10% every hour on the hour, So these type of things, which make you, as a person who's identifying with this product, stand out above the rest. You're a champion and the others aren't. I don't know if that answered the question.
It makes so much sense. And I'm going to go on what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I'm starting a white label company or business, you can say. How could you guide me through the situation of branding? Let's say on branding.
Yeah.
Not the commercial side, branding.
Mm-hmm.
What's the first step I should do?
I think the first step you should do is probably call Brandwagon. And if you don't I think if you don't do that, I think there's loads of resources out there to identify, create a name, try and find a name that doesn't exist, maybe manufacture a name, and it's very, very hard today to create a name which doesn't exist. There's a lot of websites today, official sites, where you can see whether whether a brand has been trademarked or not. So look for a naming trademark, create a logo and identity, ideally not using Canva, but if you are going to use some AI creation, make sure that it does stand out. And standing out doesn't mean it has to look good. Sometimes it could look ridiculously ugly because it's going to stand out. Because standing out across all the brands that look the same is going to help you. Okay? We talk about the concept of the purple cow. There's a guy called Seth Godin, who in my mind is the grandfather of marketing.
I saw that, yeah.
The concept of the purple cow is if you're driving on a country road and you see a couple of cows, green,
The normal situation.
It's a normal situation. You look at them, you say, oh, how cute. Us as Maltese, we never see cows out on the green. We might stop and take a photo, but then you see 100 other cows, you never stop. You see a purple cow, you literally stop the car as fast as you can. You get out there, it's boom, live story on Instagram. You're doing this whole thing. You're talking about it, you're taking selfies with this purple cow. It just becomes the story that defines you. Okay, so you need to look for that purple cow moment. Okay, so you create a name, you create a brand, an identity, you register it. It can take up to 6 months to register a brand. Okay, sometimes even more. Register it. Find a good lawyer or go to the Malta IP office. They can help you do it themselves for you. It's not a complicated process, but it needs to be done. At least now you own the brand. Next thing that you do is have to really define the audience and what the promise is that you're trying to solve. I wouldn't suggest that you go out there and just start selling everything. Don't start selling caps and t-shirts and pants and socks and all this crap. Find one thing. And whether there's 10,000 people creating caps, then maybe go for socks. Maybe just do laces. It's the cheapest thing in the book. Your monetization could be huge. because nobody knows the price of laces. I don't know how much laces cost. If I tell you they cost 25 euros, if I tell you they cost 50 euros, you will say, all right, it's achievable.
Exactly.
But the markup, because they probably cost 10 cents to produce, is huge. So you're doing 49.90 in terms of profit or money that you could invest in the branding. Create a space on how you're going to, your distribution. Distribution is huge. Okay, so how are you going to distribute your product? Are you going to sell online or are you going to distribute to one of the stores?
Locally, Europe.
Yeah, but don't don't break it down to just being local. I mean, local is good, but maybe find a bigger market. Nothing's stopping you from launching in London. Nothing's stopping you from launching in Lisbon or Porto or wherever. Find an audience that's really going to understand what you stand for. And sometimes launching a brand in an unknown space where you're unknown actually has benefits. Because if you're launching your brand locally, everybody knows who you are. There's no legend around you. There's no drama behind you. If you go to an unknown place, you can create your own story. There's a bit of mystery behind the brand that you're creating. People don't know you. So even though there's a bit of lack of trust, there's also a huge curiosity, So there's a long story where the prophet is never accepted in his own village. People don't expect you to become Steve Jobs in Malta. It's quite denial that there could ever be a Steve Jobs in Malta. Why? Nothing's stopping us. We're as clever as any other hog, but because you're local. So sometimes actually don't stop yourself. Build a global brand. Build a brand that could, scale globally.
So you suggest that whoever's building a brand, just shut up and do it undercover?
I think it depends on the brand that you're building. If you're building a community brand, no. For me, building a brand locally was obviously huge because it, there's this old way of thinking, which is it's not what you know, it's who you know. The reality is that it's not who you know, it's who knows you and knows what you're capable of. So it's about building that trust in people who know you.
Doesn't that come after?
Not necessarily, because everybody knows Luca, but they don't know you as an entrepreneur. They know you as a footballer, and now they know you as a podcaster.
But
so you do have some sort of kudos and community.
But that came from you knowing people to then people knowing you. In a way, if you're understanding me.
Yeah, but what do they know you as? Which comes back to the whole concept of personal branding. What are they associating you with? If tomorrow I had to start, I don't know, a restaurant, people probably say Pete, what the hell does he understand in restaurants? He's never been a chef. He's never had any formal training. Sure, Pete can talk, but can he walk the talk? So I think it's a matter of where do you have your kudos? Where do you have your understanding? Where do you have, the belief that you can actually deliver on something?
After going undercover, obviously the brand is up and running.
I'm not saying you have to do it like this. I'm just saying
I know.
That's just a technique that you could use.
I understand. After you're going undercover, we can say there are two options: either going undercover or showing your face on camera. The brand is up. Okay. Now let's say after a year, you're selling, you broke even, but the brand is not as you wish anymore. You want to diversify totally. What's the ideal situation?
I think today the brands that we build can never just be about the one thing. Okay, so it's always about building that community and building that promise. And even though I talked about that, raising the curiosity concept that people might not know you, I think people shy away from brands where they don't know who's behind them. Okay, so the story needs to be authentic and it needs to be genuine. Okay. And I think you have to find the spaces where you can naturally move into things. What do I mean by that? People are perfectly comfortable buying a phone from Apple, and they're also perfectly comfortable buying a watch from Apple, and they're perfectly comfortable buying headphones from Apple. Would they be comfortable buying a car from Apple? I don't know. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. I probably would because I trust Apple, but maybe not everybody. There are questions around there. Likewise, would I buy a Toyota phone? Probably lost forever. The battery would never die, but it'd probably be really ugly, But it will work, and it's probably indestructible. So I think you naturally need to understand what is the space that you can enter. And the brand that you're building today is more than just the product that you're selling. So you need to understand what is the promise that you're selling. Let me give you an even easier example. People don't buy makeup, they buy confidence.
Okay.
When you're buying makeup, it's not about chucking paint on your face to cover up some blemishes or to accentuate some parts of your body or your face that you want to look better. You're buying confidence. Confidence that you're going to look in this way to deliver on this ego that you've created. So when you're building a brand, what are you buying? Take Patagonia as a brand. I don't know if you're familiar with Patagonia.
No.
Patagonia are an amazing clothing brand. They were started by a surfer and slash climber way back in the 70s.
What's it called again?
Patagonia. And the Patagonia brand is not just about the climbing gear, and it's not just about the surfing gear. It's not about the outdoor stuff. All the profits that Patagonia generate actually get thrown into a trust, which goes to safeguard the planet. They take over spaces. They do some amazing things to really sort of combat climate change and combat anything that's got to do against nature. So when I buy a Patagonia T-shirt,
in favor of nature,
yeah, anything that they go against stuff that goes against nature. Sorry,
don't worry.
Thank you, Ansi.
Don't worry.
So anytime you're buying a Patagonia T-shirt and somebody's seeing you with a Patagonia logo, they know that you're somebody who's purchasing this product not just because it looks good. In fact, most Patagonia products don't look amazing. They're not the high fashion stuff, but they are really good quality stuff.
That's for a good cause.
That lasts forever, and also shows that you're somebody who really cares about the planet, and that's what you're buying. So it comes back to what is the promise that you're trying to sell to your customers. If you buy a Ferrari, the chances that you're ever going to be driving that Ferrari or regularly driving that Ferrari at a super fast pace in Malta is probably A, illegal, true, and B, very uncomfortable. But the reality,
break the car.
The big ego boost that you're going to get just by driving along the slim up front, knowing that everybody's seeing you driving around the Ferrari, so what they're going to say about you is a completely different thing.
Exactly.
I've got my own stories, but you're not buying the car. You're buying the engineering. You're buying the fact that you've got money. What are you showing? What are you saying? Now, that doesn't go for all the people who buy Ferraris because they genuinely love and they're passionate about the whole engineering because it's an amazing story. But what is it saying about you? You don't need a Ferrari to take your kids to school.
Now, we're stuck on the side of let's build our ego, let's show the world. But let's go on to Temu. Temu is probably beating Amazon at the moment when it comes to sales and how it's working. For example, you buy something and it's at home in 2 days. It's probably sending from China or some type of place. So sometimes it's not about ego feeding, it's about convenience.
Look, I think this is really critical, that there's one thing about just satisfying needs, and there's another thing about satisfying promise and needs. You cannot continue if Apple products didn't work, they wouldn't be worth anything. So the promise with Apple is that it's always going to work and it's never going to let you down. It's always going to safeguard your privacy. Temu is a brand, whether we like it or not. Okay? And buying from Temu is something that either people are going to judge you for positively or negatively. The reality is that buying cheap shit fast, getting it delivered fast at a fraction of the cost that you're buying from other products, from other suppliers, from other brands, there's a huge advantage to it because you're buying stuff at a very, very reduced price. So is it painful for you when you're spending money to buy something at a fraction of the cost? The question is, what is that doing to the whole economy? How many people are you bypassing? What are the standards that these people are keeping up to? What is the level of slavery? What is the level of carcinogenics that are in these products? What is the level of stealing IP of other brands? The amount of research and development that goes in developing amazing technology or amazing products, which then just gets copied and chucked into something at a fraction of the price. It's questionable. So what are you killing when you're making part of this whole scenario? And it's the same thing when, we're looking at European clothing brands who still manufacture in Europe and what they're paying for and the taxes that they're paying versus brands that are paying zero tax. I mean, they can't compete. And what is the impact on society? And unfortunately, I think that, despite me working in brands and despite me working on the A level of capitalism, if you wish, I think, and this is something that we say at Brandwagon very often, is that better people make better brands and better brands make a better world. And I think we need to always be very, very mindful about our effect that we're leaving on this planet and the people that come today and come after us. And I think, by buying on these platforms like Temu, which is basically the Chinese version of Amazon, okay,
That's it.
what are we putting out there? And what is the impact that we're having on our world? And what is the impact that we're having also on the communities that we work with? All the amazing crafts. I mean, we're recording this in a beautiful studio in Slema. And it's a beautiful street that nobody wants to buy the type of properties in this street anymore because people can't afford buying these sort of things. So the degradation of design, the degradation of harmony, the degradation of beauty, the degradation of aesthetics, just because we want things very fast, very cheap. So what is the ultimate game? What is the ultimate goal? What is the world that we're really subscribing to and building? What do we want? What is the ultimate goal? Which all comes back to what makes you feel alive as a person.
We spoke about personal branding. We spoke about commercialized branding. Now, I want to ask you one question. Give us a story where brands have pivoted.
I've got some really amazing stories, but one that really stands out, and which is a brand which is really, really close to my heart. It's a brand that we've been working with for the last, I think, 10 years now. Is Dr. Juice. You're probably familiar with Dr. Juice, and I'm sure a number of your audience are familiar with Dr. Juice. If not, go and check them out. You're welcome, John. Dr. Juice is a brand that came to us actually as they were pivoting. Okay, so if we go back, Dr. Juice, as the name stands, was a juice brand. They did smoothies and they did them really, really well. They did juices and they did them really, really well. And subject to a few other small kind of food items that they had, they were a juice brand. At one point, they decided to pivot into food. And they created this new brand, which was kind of associated with the Dr. Juice brand, but it was a different brand identity. And it wasn't doing as well. It also got to the point, in fact, they called it the eating place, which I think sounded okay, but was nowhere close to. And they challenged, how can we as a brand get into the food space when our name says juice?
Who would buy a Dr. Juice sandwich in a way?
Would you buy a Dr. Juice sandwich? Very, very good question. And the reality is about Dr. Juice is that people aren't just buying the smoothies or today the sandwiches, the amazing curries, the potatoes, the wedges, and all the amazing food that they sell. They're buying into a community. They're buying into a way of life. A community that was really founder-led by John Winfield, the guy who started Dr. Juice brand, and all the amount of amazing people that have subscribed to that brand. They call them the juicinators, the people who work behind the stores, behind the counters. The reality is what you're buying is confidence that the product that you're going to have is really high standards. The product that you're buying is something that's going to make you feel good about yourself and is going to subscribe to what your wish is. Why? Because if you go to Dr. Juice, you can buy anything to revitalize. If you want to be super healthy, they've got some really healthy products. And if you want to really indulge,
you're making me really hungry.
Well, it is just past lunchtime. And if you want to really indulge in some really sort of, proper grub, which just makes you feel good as opposed to make you, you can as well. And that is the promise that the brand is selling. And today, in fact, I think, the Dr. Juice brand is extremely synonymous with really, really good food and from different parts of the world, from your basic Mediterranean ciabatta and salads to some amazing curries, and that is just by communicating closer to the brand. And if you take the Dr. Juice brand, it's a household brand. It's a proper name, which has today really lived through the test of time and continues to deliver consistently in terms of quality and in terms of taste and in terms of the promise, which is about, fueling human potential. In fact, what it says is power up.
How do you manage to push the audience to buy a Dr. Juice sandwich?
Well, I think it was a matter of really, really clever creative advertising, but also on the part of the client, producing really, really good quality stuff. Creating the conviction. I think building a brand that's strong allows you to invite people in to test what you're doing new. So you have the invitation for people to try. People will try new stuff if they believe that you can deliver something. Then it's up to you to deliver on that promise. So if the food wasn't good, no amount of amazing branding, no amount of amazing advertising, and all the great content creators that have worked with the brand over the years could have sold some shit. The product was good. I mean, before I came here, I bought myself a chicken wrap from Dr. Juice. It's exactly what I wanted. And I knew it was like no fail, and I'm not doing this just as a plug. But the reality is I know I can trust that brand every single time. And that's what people want. You're buying the promise, you're buying that consistency. You know that if you go and you buy a pair of Nikes, you're going to buy a good quality pair of shoes. Whether they're the best quality pair of shoes, whether they're exactly on, but you know that you're delivering on quality. And if they screw up, they're going to make it up for you. And that is the promise of a brand.
Okay, that was very interesting, actually. Now, let's go on to the quickfire questions.
Go.
Are you familiar with the quickfire questions?
No.
So basically, there are a few questions, around 5 to 4 questions.
Okay.
Really quick questions. I'm going to ask you quick questions, basically, it, and you go answer quickly.
All right.
So let's go on that. One personal brand you'd buy stock in right now.
Personal brand I'd buy stock in right now would probably be Alex Hormozy, if there was a way.
If there was a way, exactly. And from all those creators, why Alex?
Because he's obviously pumping up. Do I subscribe to everything Alex says? No, but you ask me whether I would invest. I would invest because it's about money and it's about return. Okay, so I don't not believe in what he's doing. I just know that he's doing the right stuff. He's the guy who's riding the wave. If you ask me about two other big people I really like, I'd say Cody Sanchez and definitely Daniel Priestley. Those are two really...
I never came across these people.
They have a podcast which is just released on Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett's. I mean, Stephen Bartlett is a great personal brand to invest in. And what he's doing as an entrepreneur is amazing because he's creating a platform. Everybody wants to be on his platform. And if you're building a brand, the quickest way to rise to fame is to get onto his platform. Get him to invest in your company or get him to do some sweat equity by putting money into non-investing through cash, but investing through effort to raise your brand because he's got a huge platform. So for me, asking the question again, probably Stephen Bartlett first and then people like Cody Sanchez and Daniel Priestley.
Okay. Good one. That was a really good one regarding Stephen Bartlett. New information. One brand -- personal brand, I want to ask you two. You think is highly overrated?
Okay, so I'm going to contradict what I said before, but I think the answer states it in itself. For me, Alex Hormozy is overrated. I think a lot of the stuff that he promises cannot be delivered because most people are not going to put the commitment that Alex is putting in. So I think from a perspective of will he grow, will he scale fast? Yes. Is it worth investing so much in him? I don't know if he can actually deliver on the promise. I don't know if people can live up to the stuff that he's promising. So that's one. And a brand which has clearly shown that it wasn't worth half, its pence is Prime. So Prime Hydration. Which Wise as a brand, it scaled really, really fast, ridiculously fast. It was a rubbish brand. It was a rubbish product delivering on a promise which didn't really exist. Okay, it was just by association, by the drops. It was a lot about FOMO. It was a lot about can you find them, can you get them? The product was rubbish.
But they branded and marketed well.
They branded and marketed well. I think they advertised really well. Did they build the brand? To a certain extent. But did they deliver on their promise? No, so fail.
So
you can't hydrate with such a bad taste. It's terrible. Their drinks were really terrible. Did you try them?
Yes.
Horrible.
When you say horrible, in what way though? Too sweet?
In terms of taste. In terms of the amount of people who bought them, and hoarded the amount of stuff that they couldn't sell them because they tasted badly. The amount of kids like mine who went out and bought heaps to try and resell them and then they wouldn't even drink them.
I did actually.
Did you drink them?
I was buying them for $2 and sold them for $20.
You say you're one of those. So great in terms of product sales, in terms of, in terms of marketing hype. But I mean, honestly, if you were thirsty and there was a Coke, there was a Red Bull, maybe a Monster, there was just plain water and Prime or Go and Fun, which one would you have picked? Not Prime.
It's true. It was all about the hype, you can say. The biggest lie people believe in branding.
The biggest lie people believe in branding. I think anyone out there who thinks that branding is going to save a shit product, I think that's a huge lie. Branding is just a piece of the puzzle. You need to have everything in the right place. Like if you take Prime as the example, I think their branding was great. Their product was rubbish. The distribution was amazing, but the product was rubbish. So you can't have everything. You can't just sell on a lie. I think that's the truth. So branding is not going to cover up a lie because branding is about authenticity at its core. Branding is about really delivering on your promise at its core. It's a promise between you and your customers. So design, marketing, that's just part of branding.
Okay. What's one brand detail you never compromise on?
I think it's that promise, I think it's that purpose. You know, why does this brand exist? Because if you're unclear about that, everything else is built on something fuzzy. You know, whilst I say, like, you know, at Brand Wagon we believe we're in the pursuit of brand excellence. Brand excellence means that you're really building something which has a strong spine, a strong core, a strong belief that you're delivering on, because everything else can be improved. But if you're cloudy, if you're not clear what you're delivering, you don't know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going to end up somewhere else.
That happens to many different people in the beginning, for sure. It's happened to me.
Of course, and it's normal.
You know?
But there has to be a process of deciding what's the direction, what's the trajectory, what are we delivering on. If you're going to go for something which is cheap, just go cheap. That's fine. That's your promise. Go cheap. If you want something to go premium, make sure you're really premium. If it's about experience, go experience. But be very clear. You know, better have an amazing, you know, service, product, promise that delivers to 20% of your market than try and deliver something for everyone, because it just become vanilla, become beige. And beige doesn't stand out. Sorry.
Okay.
Don't be beige.
Last one. Okay, this is interesting. If you had to rebrand yourself tomorrow, personally, what's your original tagline?
If I just had to just create a new brand out of the blue for me, for Pete.
Yeah.
Some people are going to get this. You probably won't. I'll say, while you were sleeping.
Sorry?
Exactly.
Sorry, say it again.
So a couple of years back, quite a few years back, I think about 10 years ago,
Okay.
when I started my journey in sports, my kids were very, very young. And in order for me to actually train, because I used to work long hours, I used to wake up at stupid o'clock, like 4 a.m, and get out there and train. And I always used to end up taking a photo of sunrise as I was on my way back home. And as I posted that photo on Facebook at the time, because Instagram was there, but there was hardly anyone on it, I used the hashtag while you were sleeping. And the idea was, it wasn't just about because I was out there and I was doing my training and everyone else was sleeping. But I think what training did to me, it gave me a sense of clarity. As I was running out there in the cold, in the dark, on my own, or in a really hot day, and everybody else was sleeping, I was spending time reflecting and thinking about the things that were important to me. And I sometimes feel that a lot of people go through life asleep. A lot of people, you know, go through life not understanding what's going on around them, and they're not bothered or interested in taking an active, participative role in the communities that they play, both as, you know, as a population, as a democracy, as, you know, business leaders, as parents, as sons, as daughters, whatever it is. And this whole concept of while you were sleeping was really important for me to understand that I play a role in my community. I have an opportunity to change the things I hate and to double down on the things I love. And so that while you were sleeping concept was really keen for me to really say, like, whilst everyone's asleep, I'm hustling. I'm doing the stuff that's important to me. It was training, and yes, I was, you know, burning the calories and I was getting fitter. But it was also about finding that mental clarity and dealing with all the demons in my head that I would have gathered from the day before through all the work and all the meetings.
Mentioning and you explaining what you just said made much more sense now, obviously. I had a guest, Leiden, one of Malta's best ever boxers, and he mentioned that when he goes to train 4 a.m. and he finished the run and the sun starts rising, he told me that my motivation is that I beat the sun. So that's super. I connected to that a lot.
Well, to me, sunrise has always been really important. I don't know what it is. I mean, I grew up in a family of 5. We always used to, you know, my dad, we're all early risers. My parents still go to mass at, you know, very, very early in the morning. And to me, sunrise is an opportunity to succeed again. Sunrise is an opportunity to put in the work, to put in the effort, to put in the grind, and really, you know, get out there and do what you can. Sunset, it's gone. It's done. The day's over. You know, whatever you did now. You know, so the day's off. Tomorrow starts again. Hopefully you get another tomorrow. And, you know, I always say, like, people say you only live once. The truth is you only die once, but you can live every day. And so for me, every sunrise is an opportunity to really deliver on my best.
That's true, huh? That's true. That's true. Pete, very, very happy to have you as a guest. It was a super episode.
Thank you.
Last question. I actually made a mistake. I'm gonna say sorry to all of you because I made a very big mistake. We had a guest before you, Joe Cordina,
Mm-hmm.
a Welsh boxer, world champion twice, featherweight division. And I usually ask him to write a question on the notepad.
Okay.
And it was super hectic. He gave me a body shot and I couldn't breathe after the episode as a challenge. And I forgot to ask him to write the question.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you to write the question for the next guest,
Sure.
but unfortunately for this episode, I forgot. I'm being very honest with you because I could have just skipped it, but I'm being very honest.
Well,
Pete,
honestly,
I would
great.
like to shake your hand. As a thank you. Thank you so much. It was
Thank
a
you. I
super
really
episode.
enjoyed this.
Before ending the episode, kindly subscribe. As I said before, 67.4% of our audience don't subscribe. It went down by around 10% or 15% since we started Champions Connect, so I'm super happy. Thank you all. Kindly ask them to subscribe.
Yeah, go ahead and subscribe.
Also, it's very important to mention this. Pete has his own podcast called Unbrand Me,
Yeah.
and that's why I invited him today, because honestly, I don't believe in competition-wise when it comes to arguing, so that was one of the biggest parts of me inviting you.
I appreciate it.
So thank you. And he has very good guests, so check him out too. It's a very good episode, a very good
Thank you.
podcast. One last thing you'd like to say to the audience?
I think beyond just subscribing to what Luca does, I think it's great that there's a real rising community of, content creators who are really putting the work in. I see how much work you put into this, and I think it's really commendable. So honestly, respect.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So guys, also if you want to build your own brand starting out, you can check out Brandwagon. It's a super place to build your brand. And as always, Champions Connect out. Thank you so much. Great episode. Bravo.
Thank you.
Nice. It was fun, huh?